Freida, what a pleasure. 2009 Slumdog Millionaire, and this is the second time.
It was the first week of February 2009. I even remember that.
Oh my gosh,
it was probably the 3rd of February. Why don't you check your dates and tell me that's
You know what? You're absolutely correct. And that's what I love about you. There's nothing that you forget when it's something that, you know, has been an indelible component in your life. And when we met was just a great moment. I know that for both of us, I mean, we've been friends throughout this time. I want to talk about so much with you, but the thing that excites me and why I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C. with you is because of this incredible initiative that you have lent your celebrity and your time and your passion and all of those magnificent things to. Girl Rising.
Girl Rising.
I want to ask you, first of all, out of all the different you know, initiatives and NGOs and all these things that you could have participated in and you could have lent your, you know, your celebrity too, you decided that it needs to be for Girl Rising. Tell me why.
Okay, so I was working and I still am working with a wonderful organization, nonprofit called Plan International, and particularly the initiative called Because I Am a Girl. And I did a lot of field trips with them. I went to Sierra Leone, I went to Ethiopia, Philippines, did a lot of work in India as well. And then I realized that it's all well and good for me to actually go out there and report from the field saying this is what I saw, then blog about it, tweet about it, post Instagram photos about it. And all of that is all well and good. But what am I really doing? Not just seeing and reporting, but doing that is really making a difference and creating some sort of impact. So I had to recheck into what my talents and my strengths are and see how I could really use my talents and my strengths apart from the voice that I've been given. And I thought, well, it has to be storytelling.
Right.
So the way it all came about was Girl Rising was on the cusp of its premiere in Sundance, and they asked me if I'd come in and voice a little piece for them, and they said it's not really a lot, I don't know if it's really worth your time, but will you please come in and do it? And I asked them, what is it? And they said it's a call to action. And I go, that is the most important part of the film. Absolutely. It's okay if I'm not voicing a story, but that is the most important part of the film. The voicing of the call to action transformed into my participation on a whole new different level. After I watched the film, I asked them, this is all well and good that we're screening for a whole audience here in America, but what about the girls who are in the film? What about the countries that they belong to? What about India? Shall we take this film to India? And immediately they were like, this is our plan. We want to go global and we want people who understand the global world to be part of this. So they offered me a position as a producer of Girl Rising India. And that's when I started working on a whole new strategy and using my producer mind on how to bring the right partners together. I understand today, better than probably 4 years ago, the importance of partnership. And collaboration. I don't think I would have understood it if I hadn't put myself on this journey with Girl Rising. And funnily enough, it really helps with my feature producing ventures as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me what it was about Girl Rising specifically. And the reason I'm asking you this question and why it's such a fundamental question is there's so many organizations out there that are actually, you know, really focusing on the story of the girl, you know, the empowerment, all of that is really important today. And has always been important, but now it seems to be really on the radar of, you know, the mass mainstream populace. What I want to ask you is, what is the point of difference in Girl Rising that attracted you specifically to this organization?
Right. With Girl Rising, there's a big difference is that we're not talking at the girls in the story. There are 9 stories of 9 girls from 9 different parts of the world. 9 girls who are representative of girls from different parts of the world. There must be one girl story, but Ruxana's story is many other Ruxanas in India. And in none of the stories we talk at them. It's actually the voice of the girls, which we should really be listening to if we really want to see change happen. It's actually a mistake sometimes when you have the top-down kind of impact creating campaigns where the governments are talking and the leaders are talking and the nonprofits are talking and parents are talking, but no one's really listening to who we really want to impact. And the fact that in the new Sustainable Development Goals as well that was just announced in September, gender equality has found its way up. Girls' education has found its way even above gender equality. Just goes to show that the focus now has to be on girls and their education, on children and their education, specifically girls, because they are more marginalized, but I'm not excluding boys in all of this.
Of course.
And the fact that we tell the girl story in the voice of the girls and we're listening to them for the first time is really what sets Girl Rising apart. The other thing that sets us apart is, I'm not saying documentary films are all depressing, they're very informative, But we have made it a point that every film has to end on a message of inspiration,
Right.
on a message of upliftment. And none of these girls can ever be viewed as victims, because I think the whole survival instinct in people makes you want to fend for them more, makes you want to fight for them more. As soon as you show them as they have given up, you give up too.
Absolutely.
So none of my 9 girls in this film have ever given up on the fact that they know they can have a better future. So they're calling out to us and saying, join us in this fight. It's just as simple as that, listening to the girls.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that with Girl Rising, the big predominant focus has been on telling these stories of these girls from these different countries, and it almost feels like there's a universality, even though they are all kind of isolated in their own kind of communities. There's a universality in their challenge, their struggle, and their feeling that they deserve more than they're getting. And that feeling was very, very predominant when I watched the couple of stories that I did across the movie. Why is Girl Rising focusing predominantly at this juncture, other than the obviously the relationships that you guys are bringing to board so you can get the message out more, on the actual storytelling, the movie making of these stories? Who are they made for?
Okay, so that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Because who are we really trying to take this film out to? Who is my audience, right?
Absolutely.
And my audience is everybody. Because this film can be used as a toolkit in schools. It can be used as a toolkit in communities where attitudes and mindsets have not yet changed. This film is not in any which way provocative. And I think that's where we kind of have a little bit of a one-up. Provocative films are extremely great, but at this point in time, when we've tried and tested every other method, and we still hear about rapes in India, and we still hear about sexual assaults in India, and honor killings.
Absolutely.
You want to be able to go in there with a little bit of heart, with a little bit of love, and try a slightly different technique. So when we've screened these films for kids, they themselves have come up and said, we never knew that Ruxana in Calcutta was going through that, because they have their backpacks on, their school bags, school books, and they're happily going to school. Or a girl in Calcutta who does not have access to quite a few things that, say, students and children in the upper class society have. They go, oh my God, I had no idea that Senna from Peru had to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
And we're bringing the world together by telling these stories from 9 different parts of the world. But at a government level, at a teacher-student level of creating that kind of relationship, at a parenting level, I feel they're all mindset-changing stories. It's all about creating that little spark going, oh, I recognize that in my neighbor, in myself. I recognize this that I'm doing to my child. And I feel that's what we want to do. We want to start this conversation, and it has effectively worked for children, for parents, government leaders. We still have to try. To be really honest, that has been probably the toughest.
Yes. And it always is.
We have had the support of women. Now we need to get the support of men in the government.
When we chatted a little while ago, you mentioned to me, Raj, this is not just a story about the women. This is a story about a mindset change with the other gender, the men. They are also a huge indelible part of how we're going to create awareness that's going to actually make a difference, rather than just having kind of a fad. Here we are all getting on the social media bandwagon, right? And oftentimes we know that is all about real time participation, but there needs to be more than that, right? And in order for there to be more than that, this is the story of the girl, right? But how do we tell the story fully about the girl without understanding that the male quotient also needs to understand the value of the woman, right? And you talked to me a little bit about that. Tell me from your perspective how you feel that Girl Rising, even though it's very predominantly about the voice of the female and getting it out there, right? Because she just doesn't have the equalities that the men have. It's reality of all very strong, stringent societies and cultures, right? But there's this component on the other side of the male perspective. How do we go about changing that? And that was something that you really talked to me a little bit about. Let's talk about that.
I think first and foremost, when we screen films like this, we want to make sure that, as hard as it is, we get enough of a male audience in the room as well, or even if it's an open air screening, say somewhere in the deserts of Rajasthan. We want to make sure that we have enough of a male participation. The way we go about that is go right into communities. find the right male role models.
So it's a grassroots approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you get in, say, the sarpanch of the village, the leader of the village council, I think it's called the panchayat.
Yes.
When you get him in, who supports women's causes, he goes around telling people to come in for the screening. We are already getting the male audience in.
Yes.
There's always
In those communities,
in those
right?
communities,
Yeah.
there is always a male role model that we can tap into. I just feel like on the level of, say, the government leaders, if, say, Vice President Joe Biden gives us the support, you are getting more male leaders other male leaders and male thinkers into the room.
Yeah.
And I feel it's about not going against them, but going with them and standing with them and saying, what can you do to help me?
Absolutely.
And you'll be surprised, it's this common misconception that men don't want to be part of this fight. They actually want to be part of this fight, but they don't want to feel like it's polarizing in any which way.
Right.
They want us to recognize that they want us to be part of this fight. And I feel that is the difference in the way we want to approach with our films. We don't want to, which is why we have a supportive father in Ruxana's story in Calcutta, which is why we have a supportive brother who doesn't want his sister Asmara to get married in the Ethiopia story. And I think that is key to us because we don't want to exclude them and we want to highlight them as role models. My dad would not be happy if I said, I don't want you to be part of this fight because this is a woman's struggle.
Right.
He wouldn't be happy at all to hear that.
Yeah, because it's a human struggle.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with gender.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, Freida, is that having watched Girl Rising India, which you were a co-producer for, I noticed one underlying commonality with all the stories, and those were stories that I felt resonated more with people in the West in terms of, okay, look at what's happening here that you should be getting involved in, whether it's on a grassroots level, at a school or a community or, politicians getting involved to try and change policy or help make the red tape between countries easier from a funding perspective. Because at the end of the day, when you fundraise, you want as much money as possible to go where it needs to go, right? Whether it's, it's creating this story where, Girl Rising is about the empowerment of the woman. There's so much more to it that I've noticed in what you guys are doing in terms of, how do we actually make that happen, right? We've got to get as much awareness as possible with people who don't actually understand what's happening, and I feel that that's been a great thing with, what I saw with the story. How can people who aren't really involved with these communities participate here in the West?
Right. You can't force anybody to start looking at things differently if they don't want to look at it. It's very counterproductive to a movement like this.
Yes.
So once, and actually there's been such a shift in consciousness that we have more and more people coming forward. In America, in the UK, in Canada, we can start with wanting to create an awareness campaign. So by screening the film.
Absolutely.
Come together and make it a fun event. Don't make it one that leaves everybody sad and discouraged at the end of it.
And guilty, so therefore they help.
Absolutely.
Don't feel guilty. Feel like they are your daughters.
Absolutely.
Like, let's participate on a more, positive level.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you guys are about.
Absolutely. And at the same time, don't make them feel like they are, it's not a charity case,
No, it's not.
They're not a charity case. They're just people who don't have the right resources the way we have them.
Yes.
So out of gratitude, we give back to humanity.
Absolutely.
So I feel if we start off with that mindset and encourage students, elders, everybody to start hosting screenings,
Yes.
the first thing you've done is started creating an awareness campaign, and the spark is created.
Yes.
The second thing you can do is if you do know nonprofits that can help, that can use some help, go ahead and find the right one.
Right.
Because Girl Rising is not a nonprofit. We're just an awareness building campaign, but we work with nonprofits. So I think in 2015, for people to not find a cause other than themselves to be dedicated to is really sad, because we have progressed on a whole new different level.
Absolutely.
So much so that we have social media at our hand. So go ahead, tweet and put your Instagram post, but let me tell you, it doesn't end there.
No, I understand.
Because the tweets and the Instagram posts create the right amount of buzz, but beyond that, the footwork is not done by a bird or by Instagram.
Well, this is why Girl Rising has very effectively and strategically partnered up with a lot of the NGOs that are on the ground, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's the fundamental
and
part.
money.
Money.
And money.
Absolutely.
And
how do people how do people get involved in, donating money? Is there a website? Where
There's
do
a
they go?
website, so it's www.girlrising.com, and if you go to the Girl Rising website, you'll also be directed to Girl Rising India. So you can donate there 100%, that is not a problem. But let's say this interview goes out to entrepreneurs in Canada. If you are wondering where to invest your CSR dollars, let us help you.
Right.
That is the best way I can put it, because I feel investing for the sake of investing or as a charity case really does not come back with strong impact. And if you want to see sustainable change where you put in your money, people go and do the work, and then you get out of there, but the effects still continue.
Yeah, it's like a reverberation, isn't it?
That is what we want to create. We
Yes.
don't want to be helping communities till we're 80 and 90 years old, because it
Right.
won't be possible.
I got it.
Yeah, so we want to figure out ways in which we can strategize and bring financial partners on board as well, private partnership, private funding on board, and help us use their money wisely.
Absolutely. And on that note, thank you so much, Freida. It's been an absolute pleasure. Always is with you. And what I love about you is that you really just are frank with what you believe in. And this really is a frank story for the everyday person to get involved. And that's what's magnificent about you being involved. I think they've done a great job in terms of, having someone like you involved. I mean, I understand there's a lot of celebrities involved, and the importance of that statuism is great, but you've got this great indelible way of just understanding how the everyday person needs to participate and get involved. People feel like they're a part of your journey with this. That's important.
That's
right?
the most important thing. I want to be inaccessible when it comes to certain things, but when it comes to this, I want to be very accessible.
And you have been, and thank you so much.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
And thank you to you, Raj. I know this is you're interviewing me, but I think I really need to say this. Not only have you supported me and my dreams since 2009, but you are in a way supporting the dreams of so many other girls, but it's just simply supporting me right now and Girl Rising.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, and I really do hope your Canadian viewers really enjoy this film. By the way, they can watch this film on iTunes and Netflix. I just want them to know that.
Perfect. We're going to get the word out, sweetheart.
Thank you.
That's what it's all about. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And just for being you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Mwah.